Roll Tide and welcome. It's Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. We're glad to welcome you to Baumhower's for this next hour as we look back at Alabama's win against South Carolina. Look ahead as well to what's coming up in the month of November. We're, of course, joined by our producer and engineer, Todd Robbins. Our color analyst, former Alabama quarterback, Tyler Watts. And I'm Roger Hoover. It's great to talk to you, Tyler, after a Bama win again.
Boy, that was a nail-biter, wasn't it? Nothing was really going our way for most of that game except for that defensive unit. Just playing outstanding the entire four quarters. When you had to have stops, you got them. They were able to generate points for the second consecutive week. So just an outstanding job to keep Alabama within striking distance. And we had the lead a majority of the game. But when it started to slip away there in the third quarter, that defense just kind of buckled down a little bit harder, and then the late turnover obviously set up the game-winning touchdown that Jeremy Bernard was able to run it in. You know, D.K. Smith or whatever, the defensive back for South Carolina let him in, but, you know, trying to preserve a little bit of time on the clock. But once again, when Lenore Sellers, after the deep kickoff, started on the 10-yard line, he just had nowhere to go with the football. So just an outstanding job of that defensive unit. And you got to win every way that you possibly can, because Ty Simpson and that offense are not going to be, you know, hitting on all cylinders every single week. But, boy, it's just like old school Alabama football. Defense travels.
Defense travels certainly did to Columbia, South Carolina this past week. And then the offense, again, when it had to make plays, that game-tying drive, and then obviously executing after the turnover in the red zone, certainly played well. Yeah,
when it was crunch time and you had to have the plays, the guys were stepping up and making them. And all of a sudden, a lack of running ability to run the football for the entire game showed up in the fourth quarter. And Jan Mill and Daniel Hill doing a great job of staying ahead of the chains, setting up second, third and short situations that we were able to capitalize and continue to move the chain. So it was one where, all right, we got to go. And this offense was able to make it happen.
Certainly did. Jeremy Bernard, of course, a great go-ahead touchdown for the Crimson Tide, and just some fun play calls, even on the two-point conversion. Ryan Grubb, again, has quite a bag of tricks.
And you got to see Caden Proctor in the backfield. And I know
sure
you're all,
did.
anytime we cross the 10-yard line, is it time? Are they going to put him back there? Do you think they're going to do it? Do you think they're going to do it? They did, and it didn't go for any yardage this time. There's just too much penetration. This offensive line really struggled all day long with all five guys being able to get a hat on a hat and push the South Carolina defensive front around. And honestly, though, couple of elite pass rushers on that Carolina defensive front. They were pretty big up front. They were flying around the football, and they continue to get better and make life tough on this Alabama front five all day long. But there in the fourth quarter, like we talked about, we're able to push them, move them around a little bit, bought enough time for Ty Simpson to be able to digest what the defense was doing and deliver some darts down the field.
Is it time we stop questioning how this team plays on the road?
Well, look, end of the day, all you ever want to do is find a way to win.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not guaranteed to play your absolute best and blow everybody out by 20 points, but are you competitive? Do you have that chemistry to where you're finding ways to make plays happen? And this team, I think you kind of have a true DNA now that you're a scrappy bunch that even when things aren't going well, you're going to find a way to fight and just keep yourself in the ballgame. And when the opportunity presents itself, and this is kind of the biggest takeaway, when you have a chance to make a play, guys are making them right now.
They certainly are. So the Crimson Tide with 7 straight wins, off to a 5-0 start in SEC play. We have the open date coming up, and then back at home for 3 games in a row, starting with the LSU Tigers coming up for the Crimson Tide on November 8th. And by the way, it was announced earlier today that game will kick off at 6:30 inside Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll talk more about that, plus rewind this win for Alabama against South Carolina when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Play action from Sellers. Pressure coming. Unloads it at the last moment. Bobbled. Picked off. Intercepted. On his feet. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Deshaun Jones caught the deflection. And the pick six for Alabama gives the Tide a 6-3 lead.
Love to see that from Swarm D for Alabama. Deshaun Jones with the interception. Chris Stewart on the call of the pick six to put the Tide in front. Keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. And Tyler, that was certainly a good boost for this Alabama team, maybe offensively. Not much was going on in the first quarter, but Deshaun Jones with quite a boost.
Yeah, a couple of 3-and-outs offensively where we moved the ball, but then errant throws prevented us from being able to move the chains. And what should have been an easy catch to Faison, the running back coming out of the backfield. And this is what we were talking about. The play is there to be made. They don't make it, and Deshaun Jones does. He's in position. He gets the pick, and then Justin Jefferson keeps him from losing his balance and falling down and makes sure he stays upright as he runs it into the end zone. So, defense outscoring the Gamecocks 7-3 at that point, and that's what it took, because offensively we were just struggling. We just were not in sync with what we were trying to do, and everything was off just a little bit. And if we could go back and just chart, how many throws were a foot, a yard from being touchdowns or big chunk plays in the passing game, but they weren't there to be made. So the defense picking up the slack, and it was all afternoon long. It was pressure in Lenore Sellers' face, altering the throw, making him hit his check downs. We were really dictating terms and playing really tough football on that defensive side early on.
How much of that started up front from Alabama's D linemen?
It was all, because I know me and Corey during the broadcast were talking about, hey, we don't have to blitz this guy. We can just bring four. We were beating them consistently across the front with just either a four-down lineman or adding one late. And we were winning those one-on-one matchups. And anytime Lenore Sellers was having pressure in his face or felt that he was about to have pressure, he was throwing the ball all over the place. He was not accurate at all. He didn't want to get hit. And then, unfortunately, we started actually getting to him. And that created its own challenges of being able to not just get your hands on him, but get him down to the turf, because he is a load. And he extended so many plays throughout the course of that game.
He really did. Ran the ball for 67 yards. Of course, had that one touchdown for the Gamecocks late to put them in front. Lenore Sellers, talented quarterback, maybe among the most talented we've seen this year.
And he was all of their rushing offense in the first half. Their running backs, we were hemming them up, preventing them from really getting any positive plays in the third quarter. They had a couple of nice runs up the middle where we kind of got out of position and lost containment. But he was all of their offense early on, and he was doing it with his legs because we were breaking down, get to him, but just couldn't get him down to the ground.
Couldn't get him down to the ground. Again, the Crimson Tide, the pick six by Deshaun Jones. Just another reminder of how versatile the secondary can be, because we haven't called his name a ton this season. Same for some guys like Red Morgan, but when they're able to get their time on the field and make plays, they deliver.
We were doing, and once again, we were doing wholesale changes, keeping guys fresh on the defensive side, to where it wasn't just one or two players that were coming and substituting. We were seeing 6 and 7 vacating, leaving the field, coming onto the field. And this was early, like on the first drive. So very conscious of, hey, this is going to be a long game. We got to keep these guys fresh, because we started to kind of run out of gas on that side late in the ball game. But because we're playing so many players, once again, when it was crunch time, had to have a couple of stops. They were able to bow their neck and get them.
Certainly saw that from the Crimson Tide this past week. Again, winning 29-22 against South Carolina. Certainly a tough place to play, especially dealing with all the noise that Alabama had to deal with. That's among the most loud environments I've seen in the last several years.
Well, and it wasn't initially, because I don't really think that many of the South Carolina fans thought that they were going to be in that game. They had not been pleased with their performance of the previous couple of weeks, especially the last week when Oklahoma had come to town and just absolutely dominated them. So they weren't hopeful. They were optimistic that maybe they could be in the game. But once they saw, hey, we're stopping this high-powered Alabama offense. They're not moving the ball on us. We're only down 7-6. Oh, now it's back and forth. We're in it. People don't understand how electric that environment gets. And once the sun went down, the lights came on. It's a whole nother ball game.
Certainly was a game that the Crimson Tide would win. 29-22 is the final score. We'll continue talking more about the South Carolina win, plus what's ahead for the Crimson Tide this season. And we invite your questions online on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. We'll be back with more Crimson Tide Rewind. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
In motion, Bernard. Simpson looking, firing, catch, touchdown. Judge Cuevas makes the grab in the back of the end zone. on the strike, and Bama converts on the 4th and goal with 1:45 to play.
Chris Stewart on the call as that helped the Crimson Tide to a 14-6 lead at halftime against the South Carolina Gamecocks. J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear. New Alabama hats, t-shirts, and polos are arriving daily. Visit online at jnjapparel.net, or you can shop their retail store at 1926 University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. RTR with J&J. I think we're going to hear the name Josh Cuevas again coming up later on, Tyler, because he continues to be a great option in the passing attack.
He is so versatile in what he does, and he's becoming a better run blocker as well. But I thought that was a pivotal part of the game, because we were up 7-6, I believe, and I'm thinking, all right, let's just kick the field goal right here. Let's don't go for it on 4th down. We don't need to come up empty, make this an empty possession. But true to form as what Coach DeBoer and Coach Grubb have been all season long, they're going to stay aggressive. And the team responds once again by being able to convert that and go up 14-6, 14-10. I can't remember what the score was at
14-6,
yeah, at that time. But just a gutsy call once again that's well executed. Great protection on the play. No pressure in Ty Simpson's face. He's able to look left and go back to his right and find Cuevas working the back of the end zone.
And for the offense, I mean, not much had gone right at times. Alabama had 7 points on the board, but that was from the pick 6 by Deshaun Jones.
It's the only drive, yeah.
Yeah, getting rhythm. Alabama 9 plays, 81 yards, but it only took 2 minutes to get down the field that quick.
It took no time whatsoever, and things were going so well, we were optimistic and hopeful that we would score on the north side of the 2-minute timeout. So, hey, we got timeouts in our pocket. Maybe we can get the ball back one more time. We score under. However, we do get the ball back and ran out of time, couldn't get in field goal range to go up 17-6 at that point.
So the Crimson Tide again get that touchdown pass from Ty Simpson. And again, they were just Alabama just missing it a few times.
Yeah.
So with Ty Simpson, was that due to some of the protection? Was he having to scramble a little more like he did week 1?
Some of the better defensive ends that Alabama will face this year lined up against them, and it's actually a couple of weeks in a row where they've had some really talented pass rushers who were able to disrupt you, get you out of rhythm, and create some issues and problems in your pass pro. However, it was also Ty Simpson just not being quite as accurate. We saw the ball go high on several occasions where you had open receivers, and I thought surely as many times as we were pushing the ball down the field, having a step or two on the defenders, we were going to connect at some point. He overshot Ryan Williams. He overshot Jeremy Bernard on another instance. He had Rico Scott in a one-on-one situation. Didn't really think that Rico thought the ball was coming to him, so he might have given up a little bit. And another situation where Jeremy Bernard kind of was playing for the pass interference as opposed to going after the ball. So just kind of all over the place. But even right before half, a play and a throw that Ty Simpson had just killed Vanderbilt on and Missouri on, working that sideline in the soft zone of that two deep coverage between the cornerback and the safety. He had Jeremy Bernard in that same voided area and overshot him. And if he hits that, we get the ball down around the 25, 30-yard line. We're easily kicking a field goal right before half. So just weren't quite as sharp as what we had been in the past. However, that's going to happen. It's going to happen. And the question is always, how do you respond? And they responded when they needed to.
Certainly did. Crimson Tide picking up this win 29-22 against South Carolina as Ty finished this ball game 24 of 43 passing, 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. And as you mentioned, responded even in-game adjustments by him to make sure he was on target when Alabama needed him most in the fourth quarter.
And he did a good job of working the pocket. And that's a lot of people don't understand how important that is. When you start getting speed rushers and you're getting bull rushers up the middle and they're twisting, being able to find where the pocket is forming, because it's different every single time. And you're kind of moving around, keeping your eyes downfield, and still delivering some balls accurately when you needed to.
Crimson Tide pick up the win again, 29-22, the final score against South Carolina. That was this past week. This week, no game with the open date, but if you're coming to Tuscaloosa for the LSU game in a couple of weeks, make sure you join us at Vector Security Champions Lane. It is the best pregame fan fest in the country. We will have a free pregame concert featuring country music star Dasha, along with the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, meet and greets with UA student athletes, food trucks, and of course, ice-cold beer in Legends Lounge, where there is never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. And again, the LSU game will kick off at 6:30 under the lights in Tuscaloosa. Our radio coverage will start at 3:30 on stage at Vector Security Champions Lane. More on the Tide and the Gamecocks when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Kevin is to the right side of the formation. Now the snap to Ty, the dump off to Jeremy. He walks into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. And the Tide will go for 2 with 2:16 to play to try to knock the score at 22.
Hey, if you would like to join us on the show this evening, in addition to being loud here at Baumhower, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com. It's Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. So in that point of the game, Tyler, that highlight we heard, Alabama was trying to come back. We'd seen Lenora Sellers have that 10-yard rush to put the Gamecocks in front to 22-14, and then that led to the 79-yard drive where Alabama went down the field and scored with Jeremy Bernard.
And more creative play calling, especially inside the 5-yard line by Coach Grubb, of bringing Jeremy Bernard in the backfield and then having the flow go to the right, and it was like a pivot, and he's wide open to the left. Just completely got lost in coverage by the Carolina defense. But, boy, we needed it right there, and that got that defense fired up one more time. And they said, all right, let's go get another stop and give our boys an opportunity to win this game in regulation.
It really did. A great takeaway for the Crimson Tide would help lead to Jeremy getting the go-ahead touchdown for Alabama. But some resolve for this football team, and you're really focused on that in between our breaks as well, in the commercial break, asking Corey, what's that mood like on the sideline? How is this team getting ready to try and come back and win this game? Yeah,
because unfortunately in years past when things weren't going well, you had some players who you depended on that would kind of go in a shell and just not have that fight that you wanted to, and Corey was optimistic the entire time. Hey, I mean, we have good enthusiasm on the sideline. Just got to start making some plays, and that's the thing about it is it's not like we were going against a defense where they were sacking us 15 times or nobody was getting open. The plays were there to be made. We just weren't making them. And you can kind of go, all right, one good throw, and I can get back in rhythm. One good play, and we can get some things going. And a couple of drives, we were able to do that. Stacking plays on top of one another, pushing the ball down the field, and scoring pretty quickly.
And then getting the running game going as well.
Yeah, especially there late in the fourth quarter when you had to stay ahead of the chains. You could still run it because it was a one-possession game. You had 8 minutes to go, I want to say, when we took over that ball. But all of a sudden it started hitting, and then you were hitting the intermediate throws and loosening up that defense. They weren't just focused on any one thing, and you started winning some one-on-one battles, which is what it takes.
That's what it took for Alabama to get this win, 29-22 against South Carolina. Again, we'll hear some of the huge calls coming up in just a bit. The Jeremy Bernard go-ahead touchdown and just some of the great moments from this win against South Carolina. But, Tyler, just kind of looking at this team as a whole, you got through this 5-game stretch in SEC play with the 5 wins you wanted to have. You have the winning streak now going at 7 since the Week 1 loss against Florida State. Just how have you seen this team week to week build on what they've done and keep getting better?
Well, they've won different ways, I think, is what's been interesting. Against Georgia and Missouri, they came out great on both sides of the ball, going into halftime with big leads, and then didn't kind of play as well as they wanted to in the second half, and all of a sudden it becomes a tight game, and you're relying on that defense to be able to shut the door against your opponent and keep that lead where it was. And then versus Tennessee, you build the big lead, but then you come out, give up an early score in the second half, but then you respond offensively, and you're like, all right, now we're kind of starting to see it, and you keep that nice cushion and actually extend it a little bit more there in the fourth quarter. And then versus Carolina, it was, hey, we're not playing great, but everybody, when the opportunity presents itself, we got to be able to make a play. Defense has kind of been the consistent thing throughout this entire 5-game run. They have played great. They've forced turnovers. They've set up great field position. And regardless of what has happened, they have responded well by not giving up 2 consecutive scoring drives, I don't think, in any of those situations.
That's perfectly said. So that's helping Alabama to this record right now of the Crimson Tide 7-1 and again 5-0 in SEC play. Well, no game this week for the Crimson Tide, but the place to be coming up on Saturday, Baumhower's Victory Grille, your big game headquarters this fall for the 2025 football season. Baumhower's has been voted best wings in Alabama and, of course, the #1 sports-themed restaurant in the state. They're featuring their fan favorites this fall that include the Ragin' Cajun Gooey Fries, the Go Fish, the gooey char-grilled chicken sandwich, and of course those scratch-made Cabo Wabo tequila margaritas. All you football fans, kick off your season in legendary fashion and make Baumhower's Victory Grill your big game headquarters all season long. We'll continue talking Alabama football on Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
2 wideouts each side, quarterback draw. Sellers stacked up. Tim Keenan grabbed him, and he got some help. The ball may have come out late, but I think it's going to be South Carolina football. But third and a couple. Did Bama take it away? They're talking it over. They say it's Bama's football. There was a pile
the ruling on the
at
field
the end.
is a fumble recovered by the defense. First down, Alabama.
First down, Alabama. Thought they'd give me the roll tide, but I'm not Tony Giles.
Yeah.
I never will be. If you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. Brought to you by AL.com, Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. Again, looking back at this win, 29-22 over South Carolina. Alabama ties the game. You get that 2-point conversion. Carolina gets the ball back, and then the takeaway. We knew the defense had to have a stop, and we would have loved a takeaway. We got it.
Well, let's go back to the 2-point conversion, because to me, all right, Jeremy Bernard gets the touchdown. We got to go for 2 in order to tie it up. Another great call once again. Lots of movement, lots of misdirection to kind of freeze the Carolina defense and maybe just get one guy a little bit out of position, and it was enough to get Josh Cuevas to be able to slip over into the flat completely wide open, and a well-delivered ball. But that play right there, I knew we were going to win the game at that point, I think. I really felt strong that we were going to find a way to stop them, either take this thing into overtime or maybe have one last shot late on a field goal, because offense was churning, doing good. You knew that defense had finally had an opportunity to rest on the sideline. James Smith gets the offsides. It gives them a second and short. And then Tim Keenan and Deontay Lawson are right there corralling Lenore Sellers, and Deontay Lawson obviously strips it away. Heck of a play there. Tim Keenan laying on the ground, kind of looks down and goes, "Hey, there's a football there. I guess I might as well grab it."
He
did, and it's a 1st and goal. And it still wasn't enough, or a first down for us. But we were still on the cusp of field goal range. I still felt that, all right, we got to get down to the 25-yard line to feel comfortable about this, and kept hovering around the 30, and a little too far for me. Didn't matter.
Most Alabama
it didn't
fans,
matter.
yeah.
But I loved it. Even on that possession, you think about it, a minute or so to go, they had 1 or 2 timeouts, so they couldn't stop it. But we stayed aggressive.
Yeah.
We stayed aggressive by throwing high percentage passes around the line of scrimmage, trying to get it in space in playmakers' hands so that they could hopefully break a tackle. We weren't just running the ball up the middle and settling for the field goal, for the long field goal. We were trying to actively get it closer, and that shows the trust that you have in your quarterback and your receiving core to be able to make those plays.
And Alabama made those plays. We will talk about the Jeremy Bernard go-ahead touchdown coming up in a moment. Typically around this time of the show, we always like to take a look back at the week we just saw in college football, especially in the SEC. Talk about some finals from this past weekend. And, of course, we were keeping up with this game as soon as our game wrapped up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 3rd-ranked Texas A&M gets the win, 49-25 over LSU, in what turns out to be the final game for Brian Kelly as the Tiger head coach.
Crazy how quickly that has turned a bit. It's probably been a long time coming. Defensively defense has kind of been the issue the last 2 years. Even when they had Jaden Daniels, they couldn't stop anybody. They were having to beat everybody, 35, 34, score up in the 40s. And then last year, defense wasn't a whole lot better, maybe a little bit, but the offense dropped off. And this year, it has been a struggle on offense, just a tremendous struggle. So not really surprised, and there's a lot of dominoes falling out there.
Really are. So LSU 5-3, 2-3 in the SEC. We'll talk more about them coming up in just a little bit. Then the game before our game that we're keeping an eye on, Ole Miss winning at Oklahoma 34-26. We'll see the Sooners in a few weeks, but Lane Kiffin keeps picking up wins.
And finds a way to score against that Oklahoma defense, which I thought coming into last Saturday's contest was one of the better defenses in the country. And how would Lane be able to move the ball against them? They scored 34 points. Most importantly, in the 4th quarter, unlike the previous week versus Georgia, it's 2 good defenses he's placing played in 2 consecutive weeks. But unlike at Georgia, he finds ways to move the ball and finish the deal there in the fourth quarter.
Impressive win in Norman, and then in Nashville, a game we didn't really get to keep up with very much live, but looking back at the highlights later on, what a crazy, tense thriller between Vandy and Missouri in the top 15. All of it you can't believe we're saying about those two programs, but that's the case.
It's almost like an old high school football game right there. 17-10, 2 running football teams that both pride themselves on defensive play, physical, tough. I didn't get a chance to watch much of it, but you're right. Now Vanderbilt is sitting right there on the outside and may be in the best position of anyone to make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs, or even still Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean they got Texas this week. They still have to play Tennessee, so a couple in Auburn, a couple of challenging games, but they are right there.
And then for Texas, speaking of rally, 45-38, the final score in Starkville. Mississippi State had built up such a large lead, but then the Longhorns 24 points in the fourth quarter, and then the 7 they needed in overtime to stun everybody in Starkville.
24 points in the fourth quarter. Now, what was it, a minute and a half? They take a punt return back to the house to tie it up. So you talk about one of just finding a new way to lose. Mississippi State just cannot get over the hump and win their first SEC game.
And then it was Tennessee 56, Kentucky 34 in the Bluegrass, and then Auburn also finding a way to win 33-24 against Arkansas as the Tigers improve to 4-4 and pick up their first SEC win.
Do Arkansas and Mississippi State play each other? That would be a good game because they both can score, but neither one of them knows how to win.
Yes, coming up next, on Saturday, 3 o'clock.
How about that? This is going to be fun. It might last all night.
It might. So you're going to be tuned into that one. We'll talk about some games coming up a little bit later on as well, especially Alabama against LSU in a couple of weeks as we start the stretch run in November. They remember what you do in November, and we're going to talk about that for the Crimson Tide moving ahead. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Bernard in the pistol. In the Wildcat. Jeremy getting the snap. Fakes the flip. Keeps it himself. 20, 15. Jeremy 10. Jeremy 5. Touchdown! Jeremy Bernard faked the pitch to Ty Simpson on our back. Catched it. Got a couple of blocks and took it to the house. And Alabama leads it by 6 with 34 seconds remaining.
Touchdown, Alabama. Chris Stewart on the call for the go-ahead touchdown by Jeremy Bernard as you listen to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Okay, break down that play call and especially the decision by South Carolina. DQ Smith just kind of let him go once he had the first down conversion, just let him go for the touchdown.
It's funny how 2 consecutive years in a row, the ball is in Jeremy Bernard's hands with an opportunity to end the game. The previous year, if you remember, in Tuscaloosa, he catches the pass from Jalen Milroe on 4th down and takes it into the end zone. We go up a score or something, but then South Carolina immediately responds and actually has ball in hand with an opportunity to win the ball game after they got the onside kick. So it's like everything was playing out the exact same. But I read an article today where Jeremy Bernard, they actually had a conversation at some point, and he had asked, hey, Coach, if I get the opportunity to score, do I score or do you want me to step out of bounds? So learned the lesson from last year, and Coach DeBoer said, hey, go score. Go score. Our defense is playing good. We're going to shut them down with 30 seconds. They're not going to get the ball. And I loved the kickoff. I mean, we squibbed it, and we were able to pin them inside the 10-yard line. That was a huge difference in that whole sequence of events. But heck of a play there. Still more misdirection, faking the ball. South Carolina, we were staying aggressive. They knew something was up. Ty Simpson fakes it like he's going to get the pitch, and it'd be a double pass. But good blocking out front, and you run it in for the touchdown. Makes a lot of people feel better.
What makes him such a go-to and versatile player?
He's just tough as nails is the biggest thing. He's a smart kid, but he's so good with the ball in space. He can make guys miss. I mean, think back a week ago versus Tennessee. We have a double pass called. It ain't there. And he is able to break 5 tackles to not only get back to the line of scrimmage, but make it a 15-yard gain. Just some dudes have an instinct with making guys miss, not giving up on the play, keeping their legs turning, twisting, turning, whatever it takes. And if you don't tackle, you're a little poor in that situation, he's going to find a way to make it a positive out of it.
He has a lot for the Crimson Tide. Again, a great leader on this team, Jeremy Bernard, somebody that Alabama can certainly rely on. And now we get ready for an open date, and it's time for this football team to rest up, heal up before what we know is coming in November.
Yeah, and you think about your wide receiver core. As deep as you were coming into the contest versus South Carolina, no Lottie Brooks, he's not available, so hopefully he'll have an opportunity to heal up. Isaiah Horton didn't play in the second half. Hopefully he'll have an opportunity to heal up. But everyone has bumps and bruises that I know they will appreciate a couple of days off of being able to get treatment and get back to as close as 100%, that max peak performance that they're always talking about, hitting on all cylinders, and be ready to go for this home stretch in the exact same place they were a year ago, where you have a 4-game schedule on your plate, and your future, your destiny is in your control. If you want to make Atlanta and compete for an SEC championship, it's right there in front of you. We beat LSU last year and then dropped the ball versus Oklahoma. They don't want to repeat that again, so I look for them to come out hungry. Regardless of the situation that's taking place down at LSU, it's going to be a great environment at 6:30 with that kickoff. So it'll be up to the fans to make sure the juices are going, but you know that they'll be ready to play.
Yeah, the next 3 games are at home: LSU, Oklahoma, and then Eastern Illinois as we step out of conference right before Thanksgiving, and then the Iron Bowl down in the Plains in Lee County on November 29th. So some important football is coming up for this football team. What makes you most comfortable about how this group is approaching week to week and getting ready for such an important stretch?
Well, we still have not seen a perfect game. We haven't seen them play at their absolute best all 4 quarters. So there's some improvement that can take place there. Look, here's another thing that we really hadn't talked about. How many more weeks are we away from potentially seeing Quay Rusall rejoin this defensive unit to add a little bit more depth and another body on that defensive front? So we continue to improve. We're winning in different ways. I think that there's more things that the running game has not been what we have wanted to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you get stubborn and you say we're going to run the ball 50 times, but that's an area that we can get better at, and it's going to be tough, though. I mean, LSU has a good defense. They're going to be getting healthy as well. Oklahoma makes life difficult for you. Their backs are against the wall. They're playing for a lot. So there's still a lot on the line, and the competition is not necessarily going to decrease as to what we've seen over the previous 5 weeks.
We're excited for what's coming up in November, starting with the LSU Tigers at home in Tuscaloosa November 8th. Again, our coverage will start at 3:30 for that game. That will kick off at 6:30 under the lights at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. More Crimson Tide Rewind is on the way. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Sellers looking, pressure coming. He's going to go down. Sacked again by Alabama. It was Nakai Hill Green, and the clock's going to run out, and Bama's going to win it 29-22. And for the love, let's get out of here. What a ball game as Bama battles back place, and the 4th-ranked team in America gets it done. Its 7th win of the year. Another one now in SEC play. Their 5th, and the misery continues for South Carolina. But oh, what a glorious day for the Alabama Crimson Tide as Tyler White's, they find a way to get it done.
Should have known
Just
you wouldn't
finish
let
that
me talk.
thought. Yeah.
Should have known he wouldn't let me talk.
Well, that's why you have this show, to get all your thoughts out on Monday nights, Tyler.
Oh, boy. And I even have an opportunity to correct whatever I messed up on. And that I don't even remember what I said after that. It was not a pretty game, though, but you found a way to win. And that's really the bottom line. That's all that matters. From here on out, it's just about whatever it takes on that particular day against whatever opponent shows up, finding a way to win. And Alabama has impressed this year. You talk about the adversity of the first game. How do you respond to it? These guys love playing for this coaching staff. They're continuing to work, getting better every single week. But even when things aren't happening the way that you want them to, the way they have in previous weeks, you find a way to flip the script, put yourself in a position to win a ball game, and then you close it out and make it happen.
So now Alabama will be taking on LSU for the next ball game in Tuscaloosa coming up on November 8th. And the Tigers in turmoil, as we've talked about. Brian Kelly, their head coach, was let go yesterday. Their offensive coordinator let go earlier today. So Frank Wilson is the associate head coach. He'll be the interim for LSU. And unfortunately, you know what it's like to have some tough seasons at times and some turmoil with the coaching staff. How does it bring a team together? Do they splinter apart? What's next for LSU?
It's a great question, and it's one that none of us obviously know. You run the risk when you're in LSU's position of some of the older players who are going to go play at the next level, of just kind of checking out and making sure they're taking care of themselves. They don't want to put bad film out there. However, they're not going to put their body on the line, and that is a little bit of a concern. They start becoming me players. And then the flip side of that is you have a different voice in the room. So maybe there's a change of the tone, change of the way things are done, the philosophy of how we're going to attack and how we're going to play. That could be beneficial for LSU. There's just a lot that you don't know right now, but you will know when their backs are against the wall when they come to Tuscaloosa in a couple of weeks.
And they have a bye week as well to get ready and kind of reorganize with this new look staff.
Yeah, when we talked about they've kind of been decimated with some injuries on the defensive side, some key players who hadn't played the last couple of weeks that they're hoping to get back as well. And it's one last gasp. And say what you want to, LSU and Alabama is a rivalry. They have not had a whole lot of success versus us over the last 10 years or so. So these players will be trying to prove something once again, because once again, even the dudes that are going to want to play at the next level, they want to put good film out there and put that feather in their cap that they beat the top five Alabama team at their house.
Alabama and LSU, that's up next for the Crimson Tide. Again, in the month of November, some final details on that when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama? Brought to you by Coors Light. Crimson Tide fans, choose to chill with an ice-cold Coors Light. Well, next up, as we mentioned, the open date, and coming up this weekend, no Crimson Tide Sports Network broadcast as the basketball exhibitions are done. And speaking of basketball, we will be coming your way next Monday for the start of men's and women's basketball season. 4 o'clock for the women's basketball game against Stetson, 7 o'clock for the men's game against North Dakota, 6 p.m. airtime from Coleman Coliseum. We look forward to that doubleheader on opening night next Monday. So what does that mean for this show? We will not have a broadcast of Crimson Tide Rewind next week, and also no game to rewind. We did that earlier in the week with the open date as well, but we'll be back the next 4 weeks after that to break down Alabama football and get all the thoughts from former Alabama quarterback Tyler Watts.
And hopefully this is a 4-game stretch where we need to really start playing our best football, because it doesn't get easier. LSU obviously always a tough game. Oklahoma, incredible defense, coming to Tuscaloosa, and that's homecoming, so you never know any distractions that may or may not be taking place in that game. And then into the season up at Auburn, you never know what's going to happen down there. And so we need to be playing our best football as we hopefully are gearing up for another trip to Atlanta to play for an SEC title.
It's special how this team has come together, and again, we've talked a lot about the adversity early in the year, but it's nice to have this kind of stretch and again be talking about different things this time of the year.
And you just love to see the energy and enthusiasm that's out there on the field of guys, genuinely enjoying playing with one another, and the development of new faces that are becoming impact players and making a difference. It's not just any one individual every single week. It's a multitude of people who are making plays, and you love the celebrations that are taking place on the field and on the sideline amongst this group.
It's special, and Alabama is off to a 5-0 start in SEC play. Can't wait to see it continue coming up against LSU in a couple weeks. But, Tyler, all the best to you and the family during the open day.
Yeah.
We look forward to catching up with you again soon for Alabama LSU.
That sounds good. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We certainly look forward to, of course, basketball starting next week. Don't forget, we will have Hey Coach on Wednesday night in Tuscaloosa. Crimson Drive coming up on Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock as well. But that does it for Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. For Cale Rollins back at our Learfield studios, our engineer Todd Robbins, former Crimson Tide quarterback Tyler Watts. This is Roger Hoover saying thanks for listening and Roll Tide.